Hi, it's Mabel Ivory, a real estate agent in New York City. My goal is to create a best-in-class lifestyle at any price point for all of my clients. I'm coming to you on the very last hour of the very last day of Black History Month, February 2022, with a message. I am the descendant of slaves on both sides of my family, my mother and my father's side. What does that mean? That means that centuries ago, my people came to this country unwillingly. They were forced labor, and for centuries they worked the lands and were not paid and were slaves. We can trace my mother's family back to this slave. This is Emily York Turner. She was born in 1837 in Tennessee, and she was a slave, and she died in 1912. Now, interestingly enough, my mother, Velma Louella Tucker Ivory, was born exactly 100 years later in 1937, also in Tennessee. Now, the slaves were freed, quote unquote, in the late 1800s, but in the Deep South, systems, and all over the country, actually, systems were not created to provide opportunity for Black people. So my mother grew up picking cotton on a farm in Tennessee. And my mother's family did not own the land that they worked. They were getting cents on the dollar. So just enough, but not enough to get ahead. But thankfully, Black colleges and universities were founded by Black people to create educational opportunities, because education is the pathway to opportunity. With education, you can do more than work the land. So at 18, my mother made the decision to get her degree, and she started attending Tennessee State University. It took her a very long time. There was no UNCF, United Negro College Fund. So my mother had to work and then go to school and then work again. But she finally graduated and then moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and pursued her master's degree. She graduated from Case Western University with a master's degree in social work. And then she met my father, and they had me, and they bought their home. So I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a home that my family owned. And then I got a scholarship to New York University, and I went to New York University, graduated with honors, and started a career in publishing, and then got into real estate, and then discovered that home ownership in New York City is a thing of privilege, and that 80% of the people living in New York City are tenants and probably will never become homeowners, because the cost of home ownership is so high here that most people can't afford it. And so I began to become an advocate for it because it creates so much wealth. The number one way to generate wealth around the world is through owning a home, because you're building your equity up and then you can sell the home. And the home is like the number one most expensive, as well as the most valuable purchase the average American is going to make. And for so many Black Americans, we never get there. For so many New Yorkers, you never get there. But in my community, it's statistically proven we are underrepresented in the home ownership space. A lot of it is psychological. It comes from years and years of being property. It comes from a propaganda and images of, who is a homeowner and who isn't. It also comes from racism. Black History Month for you. I collect Americana. Whenever I go to an antique store, I ask for Black Americana. What is that? Those are images like way back in the day. They would publish these racist caricatures, Black people with big lips and like the most ugliest stuff. Here's one of them, and I purchased it because it relates to real estate. It's the sheet music for Rufus Rastus Johnson. This was published in 1905. What you gonna do when the rent comes due? And it is Black people without any money, because the writer is on here and he looks like he has the money, so this song is not about him. And then I don't know who this chick is, but these are my people. Interestingly enough, when this was published in 1905, Emily York Turner was still alive. She was old, but she was still alive. So there were many slaves that were still like alive. Freed slaves. I guess she was a freed slave, but still not very well off. This is pre-civil rights movement. You know, the civil rights movement didn't happen until the 60s. So we, Black people, you know, there was separate but equal. There were schools for us and in the South and schools for white people, and our schools were underfunded. So we were going to school, but we weren't getting the same education and opportunities. Thank God for the Black colleges. Thank God for the United Negro College Fund that came after. Because with an education, it created opportunity. That's why there is affirmative action, people. So that it's kind of guaranteed we have places, and we still earn them. You know, I earned my scholarship to NYU. My scholarship was a merit-based scholarship. I was in honor society. I was one of the top students at Orange High School in Cleveland, Ohio, same high school that George Stephanopoulos went to. So I earned my opportunity at NYU with my scholarship. It's not just about handing out an opportunity. It's being created to develop a level playing field. So somebody like me from Cleveland, Ohio has the opportunity to come to the big city and be something really great. But my legacy, I'm the descendants of slaves. So when you all see me like talking about home ownership and really being a stand, when you think about where my family came from, we were the property. We were never supposed to own. We were never supposed to have enough money to pay that rent. Now there's all kinds of opportunity to be a homeowner. Interest rates are still relatively low. There are many banks that have programs that provide down payment assistance. There are grants that are available. All you got to do is take a course, a first-time homebuyer course, and you may be eligible for grants. Many of you are paying rent, and for the same amount of rent, and in many cases less, you guys can own. I'm not just talking Black people. I'm just talking in general, across the board. And not for nothing, there was indentured servitude with Irish people. You know, Black people were slaves, but there was some indentured servitude with the Europeans that came to this country. And, you know, it's the American dream to own a home. As I said earlier, it is the number one way to generate and create wealth. Interest rates are the lowest they've ever been. Still, even though they're going up, they're still the lowest they've ever been in the history of tracking the interest rate, the mortgage interest rate, which was the 70s. Rents are going up. If you can own and your money can be working for you every month, you really, really need to seriously look at that. And it may be overwhelming to you. So that's why you call somebody like me. Check me out on mabelivory.com, mableivory.com. Reach out to me. Thank you for listening. And I hope the next time you see a Black American who's a descendant of a slave, and you think about their legacy and all that their people went through, that community, my community, maybe they're just a little bit of compassion, understanding. Happy Black History Month.